everyone, and welcome to Command Center, your video game book club podcast. My name is Daniel, and with me is...
Nate Lamb, the leader of the Tampa chapter of the fire-needing Clabe.
And...
The Jason's truck is back, and it's better than ever during Christmas this year.
Is it a helicopter?
No.
Okay.
The Jason truck is here.
So, this month we played Homeworld 1, 2, and Deserts of Karak, and kind of maybe a little bonus if you guys were listening last month. We'll come back to that later. So the Homeworld franchise started in 1999, and this was, at least for me, the first 4X game I ever played. It's kind of a strategy game, but in real time, like an RTS, but it was in space, so it was 3D, complete 3D. You had front, back, side to side, front, back, side to side. And you have a mothership, you build ships, and you fight other fleets. 1 came out in 1999, like I said. Homeworld 2 came out in September of 2003. And Homeworld Deserts of Karak, the newest one, came out in January of 2016. All were, the first 2 were made by Relic, and the last one was made by Blackbird. With that, what did you guys think, very first impressions?
I love these games. All of them. It took me some time to fall in love with some of them, so I played them not in their release order. But I love all these games. These games are the sickest dickest in my mind. Yeah, make that face.
That was my nickname in high school.
Because you had polio in your... Jason, what'd you think of the game?
Polio.
Fuck you.
Well, it's better than Serval Ballsy.
Yep, that's true. Gotcha.
I nearly threw up.
Well, my first impressions were... You won't catch me playing any type of game like this on my own.
Meaning RTS?
RTS. I mean, if somebody wants to play StarCraft, I'll play some StarCraft. It's, besides the story, it's not my cup of tea of game. That being said, after being reluctant as fuck wanting to play this game, like trying my hardest not doing so.
Didn't you start, like, really late?
I started super late,
Yeah.
but I actually loved it. Dan came into the garage, I think it was yesterday, and he was like, not introducing himself, but like just saying like hi to me, and he was like, "All right, well, fuck you," and I was like, because I didn't say anything to him.
I got home from work and he was already here and he was playing Homeworld, and I said, "Sup, dude?" And like I went over and grabbed a beer and I sat down and he had never said anything. I was like, "All right, well, fuck you too." He's like, "Oh shit, my bad." Like, he was like completely engrossed.
And that was probably the first time I actually got deeply into the game, where I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna set stuff up, and that's where it got me. It got me in like a chess sense.
It is kind of like a chess match.
Yeah.
What with the different types of ships are good against some and bad against others, and you have to keep remaking your fleet to counter basically what's thrown at you. It is very much like chess. I never thought of it that way. That's a good idea.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I ended up just loving it. I'm definitely gonna keep playing the rest of these games, or just if not for the gameplay, just because it's so unique. The story is definitely enticing.
So that being said, we'll have to say right off the bat, Jason and I didn't finish. So what we did was, since there was 3 games in here, Nate was set to play Deserts of Karak. Jason was set to play Homeworld 1. I was set to play Homeworld 2. Jason and I did not finish, and there was different reasons for that. But I have played Homeworld 1 before, and I had finished it back when I was a kid.
Exactly, and I have watched Dan play it several times as
Correct.
a kid. So it's like I knew what I was going into.
But, Nate...
I finished 3 games this month. All of them.
So we just look like assholes.
Yeah. I got here early today, and I was like, let's play a multiplayer match. We got to play a multiplayer match. They're on like mission 7 and mission 8, and both of these are 17 and 16 mission campaigns, I think. Don't quote me on that.
Christ, really?
Yeah, they're long. When you were
that.
texting me about mission 3 like 2 days ago, I was like, there's no way he's going to finish.
I feel really
but,
bad.
Like, no, they're big. They're not weak in terms of gameplay length, and they're long games.
Definitely.
But like the fact that it was like 2 days ago you were asking me about mission 2 or 3, and like today you're on mission 7 means you got into it. Like that's what these games do. They'll suck you in for 6 hours, and you're like, shit.
And definitely, but there's one thing about it where it's not necessarily like puts me off, because it's what makes me go to this game, but also makes me need to put down this game. Is it gives off this very like Battlestar Galactica vibe, Because,
Yeah.
like, I mean, the story is, like, kind of like it, in the sense, like, you know, there's this, at least from how far I got, you're the rest of the race from this planet. That
In
was
one.
here. Yeah, in one, of course. And then, so it just felt like, dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
So I'm like always on edge and shit. So I kind of had to like put it down at some point.
It does definitely keep you on edge. It can, especially if you like play a mission and you lose it. It's really demoralizing because you spent the last 45 fucking minutes or whatever doing it. It's interesting that you brought up Battlestar Galactica because not even talking about like the gameplay, but I think specifically the music. The music has a super Battlestar Galactica feel to it. And
Yeah,
I didn't do
definitely.
the research. I think Nate did, and chime in here if someone from Battlestar did
So,
the music.
Alex Garden, the director of the game development and one of the founding members of THQ, the publisher, and this was their founding game, in a 98 interview with PC Zone said the influences on the game are Battlestar Galactica, or it was a game that looked like Star Wars with the storyline of Battlestar Galactica. That was
And
their goal going into development.
Homeworld 1.
Yeah.
And that was before the new Battlestar came out. If I'm
Yeah,
right in my
exactly.
timeline
Which,
here.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't look a lot like the new Battlestar because the camera is much more static, like the old Battlestar. But
But what I mean though is even in 1, the music had a Battlestar Galactica feel to it.
Yep.
Before a new Battlestar Galactica feel to it. Before new Battlestar Galactica was
that's
even
true.
out.
Yeah.
So that I wonder if maybe there was some cross.
pollination.
Yeah.
You're saying Ronald D. Moore might have played some Homeworld?
He's in fucking everything, isn't he? I mean, it's actually probable that he
probably,
did.
I don't-
Well, and that, I
Got it.
mean,
Yeah,
think
man.
about like the target audience for both the TV show and the game are probably similar groups of people. Like
Right.
the people who love Star Trek want adventure. I love Star Trek. The people who love Star Wars want big epic battles. The people who love Battlestar Galactica want the big epic space adventure with the battles, and that's what this game for me delivered. Like,
Big epic boobies.
also, speaking of the music, so I came over to these guys' house maybe 4 hours ago, and for about an hour and a half, they just keep saying, "Can you get me a soda?" Or what we could say it. I can't remember what it was. Yeah.
I don't remember now either because
don't
the
remember
music's
now.
not going
But
on.
so
Yeah.
Jason's playing Homeworld 1 remastered with the new music, and
that was my PC.
It was
oh,
that
that
his.
was,
doing it.
oh, it was-
Yeah,
so Homeworld
so
2 remastered. Then, right?
So I had heard it before. I'm not like thinking anything about it, and I'm like going through this epic battle, but I can like hear his. You know, we live together. We're in the command center. Our pieces are next to each other, so I can hear his game going off. And it's just, you know, this is a verse that is probably like gibberish, I would assume.
Yeah, it's a mission where they have this really atmospheric music in, but it's like intense, and they have like a chorus singing in what I think is a fake language. I don't know.
It could
I would
just be
assume
like
so.
modulated, but the audio comes off as
Hey, would you guys get me a soda?
Yeah. Hey, would you guys get me a soda? Yeah.
So they were for like 40 minutes while I think I was typing something for work, are saying, "Hey, would you get me a soda?" Over
you
and
were
over
no,
again.
no, you were still in the room when this was affecting me, and I guess you were
I
typing
didn't-
up stuff for work. So
Yeah.
I was like, son of a bitch, this is gonna be stuck in my head. And then not 20 minutes later, I hear you saying the same thing, and I'm just
Yeah.
laughing my ass
Because
off.
they just keep saying, "Give me a soda." Hey, would you grab me a back and forth? And I have no idea what's going on. I'm doing this friggin' work BS, and then I hear it quietly. There's quiet in the room, and I suddenly hear the music sounds like it's saying, "Hey, would you get me a soda?" And I just friggin' lost my
Well,
shit
why wouldn't you get me a fucking soda, you dick?
because we only have beer and we're all already drunk.
Right,
Besides-
right.
Seriously, it's like I always think it's so unrealistic with soda commercials where they're always like at the game or hanging out. Grab me that Pepsi.
Everyone's-
Who the fuck is doing that?
Everyone's like cheering their cokes together, like "Fuck yeah, we scored!
Yeah, sugar.
Diabetes."
Speaking of drinks, something happened tonight that I didn't think would happen when we started talking about a podcast. We reached 6 months, 6 episodes today, right? This is our 6th.
This will be episode 6. Yeah.
So speaking of drinks, I'm drinking whiskey, and I think neither of you guys are here now. Oh.
Yeah.
I already
Sorry, guys.
finished
I
my
tried to
whiskey.
bring him whiskey so we'd stop having cracked beers in the mics. Daniel just missed an opportunity. He quietly danced across a room, opening one under his shirt, which is just disappointing.
Don't worry, it'll happen at some point. We have about
sure I'll do it.
55
Yeah.
minutes left to
It's
go.
on one of my notes to not do that. So
Oh, it's on mine to do that because I can't have another glass of whiskey because the rocks jingle jangle in this cup.
Like my balls?
Yeah, okay. All right. Jay, so you were our new guy, and you're not an RTS player as well.
Mm-hmm.
You liked the game. You liked what was it? Give me like your if you never played it again, what's the highlight reel? Not of like gameplay mechanics, or I'm sorry, not of like a game breakdown, but what were the parts of the game that stood out to you?
I mean, the story, basically. I actually went and watched a couple of videos that was just... it was basically, I would assume, a synopsis, but I assume it was a synopsis, but only if you got more into depths, if there was, like, I don't know, like... What are they called? Like codexes in video games, where you can like see into different stories. And I'm assuming there are some in Deserts of
Karak comes with it took me about 5 hours to read through it, and I have a slow reading speed, so probably like 2 hours for a normal person, maybe 3. And he was literally like, it took me about 10 minutes into that video. He sent me the first one.
He's was literally reading the codexes YouTube. He is specifically this YouTube video. Forget the guy's name. Forgive me. He basically just has one 20-minute video and then one 12-minute video, just basically on the politics and the history of the planet of Homeworld, which is hard for me to say because I always forget.
Higara? No. Yeah. Well, it starts out as Karak.
Yeah.
Mad Letter on YouTube.
It was pretty good.
284 subscribers. Check out his videos.
Exactly. And I was full blown interested in that. I definitely like if there's any, which I assume are books, maybe even audiobooks out there. No,
I don't think so. I've never seen it. I never looked though. So
that's very surprising.
If
honestly.
You're interested, you got my Steam login. Log in and launch it. Like download it, and launch it, and it gives you. Some games are like, do you want DX9, DX10? This one's like, do you want to play the game or do you want me to launch? Because they don't do manuals anymore. But this game, the original game, came out in the age of manuals, and the manual was a book. I read every fucking page of it, and it was all lore and storyline. And so they did. It's a separate program. It's like an interactive PDF where you click through. It's like 40 pages of backstory and storyline and the history.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's amazing. Yeah. Speaking on specifically lore, the guy's name. Oh man. Keep going. Never mind.
Yeah, we should say that Nate and I have played these games, or at least I played one many times when I was a kid. It was one of my favorite games when I was a child, and so much so that like when Jason was even younger than me, he's my cousin, and would be over my house and like watch me play the game. And I remember, and I'm sure you do too, he would call it the cell phone game because at the time, we
referenced that in the last episode.
The way the mothership looks like an old Nokia, which is, I was thinking about it earlier, which is kind of funny because if we were to say that in now, no one would know why you call it the cell phone game, because cell phone games are just flat fucking screens.
Which, if anybody's listening to all the podcasts in a row, about 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago in podcast creation, we just explained that at the very end of the last episode.
Not only that, I mean, like anybody under like probably our age are like, what the fuck is Nokia?
Yeah,
truth.
You mean the fake cell phone brand from the new Star Trek movies? Swing and a miss.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
When young Kirk steals his dad's car, the interactive.
I thought that's what you were
it says
talking
Nokia
about.
on it, and it was like, oh shit, is Nokia still doing something? That was a big marketing push they did right before they went completely fucking bankrupt. Like, we're gonna get our name back out there and broke.
It's all full circle though. Nokia, Star Trek, sci-fi, Homeworld.
You never know.
Speaking of the lore and the writing, so the in the credits of the first game, there's a guy named Martin. I'm going to murder this. Cirulis or Cirulis? Cirulis.
Corellia.
No, that's his name. That's actually his name. I just murdered it. Marcus Schuyler is in the credits. It's two people. Scriptwriter Martin, that word name I couldn't pronounce, and Aaron Dimbo. Aaron Dimbo. Shut up. I know. He's got a funny name.
So you spent all that time in a guy's name that you can't pronounce, and you just gloss over Dimbo?
Yeah, seriously, come on.
Listen, Bo, don't be dim. So Dimbo did a lot of the background lore. The writing was a combo team credited as Marcus Schuyler by Surlis. But so those guys, Curlis specifically, went on to found Kerbos Interactive, which made Sword of the Stars. This dude, I need to find him. Ground Control, all the Homeworlds, and he worked on Cataclysm, the non-Homeworld that came out, which is a Homeworld game, but it was made by a different studio. He literally, when I was reading about him, all the games he's ever made are games that I want to play. In addition, he's made several tabletop games, which I'm going to subject you two assholes to.
No, you're not.
I'll beat you.
Sounds kinky.
So here's a thing that I always thought was weird. Or not weird. I just kind of wondered about until I did the research like 10 minutes ago. I remember when I had bought Homeworld 1, like you said, it came with a manual and all that. And in the manual, it described itself as a 4X. And I know now what a 4X is, just because I've played so many of them, but I didn't know what the 4X stood for. Do either of you guys know?
Yeah,
I looked it
yeah.
up a while back.
But explain it to me like I don't.
I think that
Wait,
you're full
let me
of
take a
shit.
step. Let me take a step. It was 4X. So 4X has been kind of the big epic strategy game. So when you in the intro said this was 4X, I was like, I consider this like 3.5. It's not full 4X.
No. You're misunderstanding. The 4X's stand for something.
Well,
Like it's an acronym?
exonerate,
Yes.
exonerate, Excalibur.
Xena, xenophobe, xylophone.
That's 3.
Didn't you say? Oh, 4.
Don't
Shit.
bring up his lack of mathematical knowledge.
Exhibit.
Just tell us.
Exhibit.
So, 4X, which I found out today, stands for explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate.
Well, but that doesn't even make sense. Explores with an E first.
Okay, exhibit.
Exhibit is X.
No,
No.
that starts with an E, you fucking
It starts
idiot.
with
It's
P.
X.
It starts with P
Exhibit.
because he pimps your ride.
Jesus Christ.
Either way, this is why. Going back to the actual discussion of the genre, I don't think that, because this isn't like in terms of exploit. Really, Deserts of Karak had 2 resource options. Everything else had 1, and so like it's not. I would say it's like 3.5 because
You're still exploiting resources.
yes, but you're just harvesting them. Like whereas think of what's the big one, the big space one. I know you've played it. It's a Paradox game. Oh man,
Stellaris?
Stellaris, like that's a 4X. Civ would be a 4X to me because you're finding different resources to exploit. You're finding different.
It doesn't matter how many there are. You're still exploiting resources. I'm just saying,
yes.
in the vein of the genre, that's what it is.
And
It is a 4X.
Guys. I still have not been explained what a 4X that I already know what it is.
Okay.
He just explained it.
I just said explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate.
There are RTS or turn-based strategies, so TBS, that are basically they're really large developing games. Hearts of Iron, Daniel and I was playing. That's a 4X.
Okay.
Games that literally you can't sit down and play for like an hour. You have to play for hours on end, and that goes
Not
back,
necessarily a grand strategy, but getting close to it.
yeah, always a grand
That's what I
strategy, but
assume.
yeah.
That's what it like.
Well, because this is a very tactical game.
Yeah.
There's not really strategy in it. You come into a mission and you do it. It's tactical.
Which is maybe
It's
one of
not like big picture.
the idea that you
Isn't that not semantics between like the definition of or like between tactical and strategic?
Well, no,
Yeah.
that's not semantics at all.
no.
Tactical is battle. Strategic is kind of like setting everything up for battle. So, for instance, if you're going to compare, in my mind, what your quintessential strategic grand strategy game is, Hearts of Iron, you're managing the economy of a country, you're managing your politics, you're managing the troop movements, as well as trading, everything.
manufacturing the equipment for the troops to use.
In this, you're just building units and fighting with them.
I
You
see,
have
I
to
see.
Okay. harvest resources,
I
of
see what you're
course.
saying, yeah.
But you're not doing the politics and all that. This is just like, here you are, here's the mission, here's who you have to kill.
Now that would
do
be
it.
Battlestar Galactica the game.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there's the element. So like the core of the reason I'd say this is 3.5 and not 4 is that there's not as much focus on the big thing that makes it, and what I think was one of the founding members of 4X games, is that your fleet is persistent. What you end mission 1 with, you go into mission 2 with. So if you have a really rough loss in mission 2, mission 3 is suddenly much harder. If you, like, watching you lost all your bombers and fighters fighting the keepers of the garden, the next mission was going to be more difficult because you didn't have them. Now, one of the reasons it's also 4X is that it had the adaptive AI fleet composition. So if you came in, like if you got the crap kicked out of you and you came into a mission with only a resource harvester, 2 scouts, and your mothership, it would taper down the enemy fleet. If that was still going to be a really hard mission, it was still going to be a hard mission, but it was going to taper down the number of ships the enemy had.
So are you saying that by what I was doing, at least in 1, which Dan was explaining that you can't really do it in 2, is I was able to gather resources before I hyperspace to the next mission, and then I was able to build up my fleet. By doing so, I was making the next mission harder.
Agreed. Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Now, so
but the problem with that is, which I've had with one when I was playing it through one of the several times, is if you choose to not harvest all the resources available to you, you're still, like, since it tapers the enemy fleet, you're still going to take probably the same proportion of losses while you're fighting, and then when you get towards the end levels, you're not going to have the resources to then build your fleet back up. You'll have to go back a couple levels. After you beat the said level, you stop, you harvest all the resources available.
No, I understand that, but it seemed like the better strategy would have been to get all those resources before hyperspacing to the next mission, and then building your fleet.
And that is correct.
But it can be dangerous because there's a lot of missions where you get attacked immediately.
There's and if you,
it's a trade-off.
like the first game of the series that I ever played, I had the Prima official strategy guide, and it ruined it for me because I knew what was going to happen in the next mission. So in one mission, it's like, yo, put all your fighters in your carrier, not in your mothership. Because if you put them all in your mothership, at the beginning of the next mission, you've got saboteurs aboard who blow up a bunch of stuff on your ship, and they basically blow up your hangar bay. It doesn't get destroyed, but none of your fighters can launch till you fully repair the ship. So the Prima guide told me, throw everything in your carriers, all your fighters and corvettes. So when I started the next mission, I had an unfair advantage. Now, in the first game, at launch, it adapted to you, in that if you captured every ship and rolled in with 5 destroyers and a heavy cruiser, the enemy fleet was going to be much stronger, but you don't know what the next mission is. Like, when the mission you were playing, you jumped into a nebula to hide, and suddenly you're attacked by some really crazy strong fighters. You didn't know that was going to happen. So the gamble is, and granted, as far as I knew when I played it the first several times, until researching for this podcast, I didn't know that the fleet adapted to my strength level. So I never even considered not building. Like, did you ever, at the end of a mission, not rebuild a shattered Corvette force or a frigate squadron?
No, yeah.
Yeah, you always rebuild it because you wanted to make sure the next mission was
exactly,
good.
And I also wanted to, like, preset my squads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've got your medium engagement, your heavy engagement, your early and fast. You know, but that's, I think one of the reasons it is 4X is that it's persistent. You are, especially in the first one, this fleet fighting to get to your homeworld, and it is the grand strategy, the explore, the exterminate, the exploit is crossing the fucking galaxy to get home. And you didn't even know you had the home 90 years ago.
Spoiler alert.
Fuck you.
Yeah, I
Not
said,
Daniel,
I've said it every
the
single
listeners.
time.
Yeah,
I have to.
I know, but at this point, I'm just dropping F-bombs at you.
Fuck.
So what was your least favorite part of the game, Jason?
Well, before we do that, actually,
Yeah,
as a newcomer, I actually wrote down a couple of questions that I had for either of you that maybe you could answer.
Interesting.
A couple. I think there was one. There was a couple that I had, but I think I only wrote down one. At least for the first one, I don't know if it's different. So in the first one, you had defenders, which were like separate from your interceptors. Basically, what I did was, and what I saw them do before I researched them and got them, was put them around your frigates. And then I set them on defend, and then whenever like everybody comes in, shit goes down, they're just defending my frigates no matter what. So which I didn't realize until today, that you had a cap on how many, like, I guess ships or whatever you could have. Defenders I guess they're classed as fighters. Everybody else was like capped at 70, which is like the max for all fighters. But defenders were capped at like 35, like half of everything else. Do you know why that was? Why they would be capped so lower than the rest of the fighters?
Nate?
It's the application. So defenders are heavy armor, 3 guns on actuated turrets. And the idea is that the turrets can, like, your interceptor, your scout, your bomber. Are there any other fighters? I don't think there are.
I didn't play one on this one, so it's not fresh in my mind.
Like, all of their guns are fixed. They're spinal mounted. They face where the cockpit is facing. So the idea is the whole ship moves to fire its guns. The defender just points itself in one direction, and it's got 3 guns that are on 180 swivel mounts. And the idea is when fighters are coming in, these guns, at least in the lore from... All right, I'm going to reference the Homeworld Cataclysm Manual. These guns are swiveled, and the idea is they fire a shit ton of shots really quickly, and then they have to pause to reload. They're really slow, heavy armor, and the idea is a wave of interceptors or a wave of bombers comes in, and you've got 10 defenders around a frigate or a destroyer.
I had 12.
They drown the motherfuckers in rounds, and they knock half of them out of the air, and then they have to stop to reload, reducing the initial damage this incoming fighter wave can do.
So basically, the reason that there's lower cap is because they're more valuable. They're stronger than your standard interceptor or bomber.
Yes and no. Yes, and everything I just mentioned, including their armor. The downside is their max speed is probably slower than some of your frigates. They are really fucking slow. They are meant to defend your heavy ships from being mobbed. Because if you look at all the heavy ships in one, the frigate up, they're all their guns face forward. The assault frigate's guns can swivel a little bit, but it's only like a 30-degree arc. The idea is they focus all their pain on one target and they lay into it, going up to the heavy cruiser. The counter to that is really fast, light ships that can do some damage, bombers. So the idea is, if you build a heavy cruiser, it thing is worth the investment to put 10 defenders around it. They don't need to be fast because they're just riding in a sphere around your heavy cruiser, covering it from incoming bombers.
Exactly, and that's literally what I did. So, like, they saved my... I had a group that was 3 ion frigates, 3 assault frigates, 2 support frigates, and then 12 defenders right around that. The last mission, I would have been gone. God rest their soul, all the defenders died, but my frigates were just fine.
I want to quote something from about 40 minutes ago. Daniel's playing the game and he goes, God, I hope those scouts were unmanned. And I went, they're not, but they are now. As I'm looking over and they're just exploding on his screen.
Technically the truth.
They could have been women.
So you had, how many questions do you have?
Like I said, I had several, but I think I only wrote down one.
Because
okay, so my other one, it's not so much a question. I mean, you'll be able to answer this or, like, retort to the statement, but that tutorial blew. I don't know what the fuck, like...
The tutorial.
Yeah, it dropped me in, like, it essentially gave me, like, one, like, third of what I need to know, and it was like, you're equipped to play Homeworld, and I was like, I am?
Here's the thing about it. I see where you're coming from, but I also feel like the first 2 to 3 missions in Homeworld 1 are a tutorial. They baby you all the way.
Beyond...
And they tell you exactly what to do, when to do it, and where to do it. So I feel like it's like, here's the controls, here's the camera, here's how this game is meant to be played, and now you're ready to play. And then the first 3 missions are like, now here's how you really play.
Yeah, the tutorial is, here's how you interact with the interface of all the data you've got coming into you. Like, how do you... Shut up.
I didn't even feel that one. That's what she said.
After the credits, I'm gonna talk about putting data into people, but right now, let's keep on the game. But no, like that how to control a ship, how to make the ship move up and down, how to make the ship move forward and back. The tutorial was meant to, like, introduce you to how the game runs, how to move ships around, because it's a big interface compared to a lot of games. Like, I love RTSs and I love complex interfaces and I love over complexity. You guys know this shit, but
almost to a fault.
Yeah, it's like Holy 4 came out. I was like, what do you mean I don't get to choose the colonels in charge of the latrine?
But that's the thing, though. That's one of the things I hate about RTS is when the interface is so complicated where I'm just like...
It's harder to learn how to play the game.
But I did not find that... there was a lot of things that were hidden. Like, what was it that I found out the other day where I was just like... happened to be hovering over... buildings and it was like oh yeah, it was showing the weaknesses and strengths.
It was the ships. He didn't realize, and this was like yesterday, where he was like, oh, if you go to the build menu and hover over the ships, it'll tell you what they're good against, what they're weak against. I was like, you didn't fucking know that?
Yeah, I was just like, I've just been winging it, man.
They tried to,
no pun intended,
introduce the ships to you in a method that we're being attacked by a long-range missile. So in Homeworld 2, they do a really good job of this. In Homeworld 1, they don't. It's an older game. Back in the day, here's the game, deal with it, bitch, was kind of the attitude. Think of Street Fighter, which was the 80s, how hard that was. Yeah. But like in Homeworld 2, they do a really great job of, you're being attacked by a long-range missile frigate. It has no fighter defenses. You need to build bombers. We've now allowed you to build bombers. And they teach you through the first 5 missions. In Homeworld 1, they don't do as good of a job because...
That was the gaming culture back then.
And that because RTSs ruled gaming throughout the entire 90s. They were like 60% of the market share until the 2000s.
For PC, I would have...
Yes, yeah. But gaming in the 90s was
there were
Mario
no
or
RTSs
PC.
on console at that time.
No, because console games were... At the time, console and PC, it's only in the modern age, like since 2000, where we've really seen a lot of cross-platform.
Right.
Because back in the day, it didn't happen. So, like, when you played the early PC games were adventure games, text-based. You typed in what you were doing. Like,
yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Which maybe we should do one of those in the future.
Dude,
no.
Was it not Adventure Time is supposed to be what's the old adventure game from like 86?
The one from Ready Player One.
Yes, I literally played it on PC Gamer. Put out a great like public domain games, and one of them was this game. And I tried to play it so many times because it was supposed to be one of the best. It's the where I found XCOM was on this game disc, and I could not figure out. It was like, pick up sword, use sword, please use sword, stop dying, you bitch.
Mother may I?
And honestly, that goes towards my kind of like not necessarily loathing of this type of game, but where maybe it's my like Oonga Boonga type of mentality where it's like I'd rather be shooting the gun than telling this person to shoot the gun in this game.
Yeah.
You know, like
Absolutely no.
I don't think of that as Oonga
it's-
Boonga at all. I think of it as we're products of our environment, and like Tesla came out with a bunch of auto integrations that are beyond anything, and now we are as a market sick of the old automotives. We are products of our environment, in that like I don't want a game I have to learn. I want a game I have to play.
That's not necessarily what I mean. Of course,
Okay,
I
my
want
bad.
to. I want to. I understand what you're saying, but for me, what I'm thinking is like I don't know. I mean, it's like for example, in Homeworld, while I loved it's like a chess game. I love doing that. I still found myself sitting there for a little bit, just watching shit happening, and not necessarily I'm getting bored. But I can still, if I'm aware of me sitting there, not doing anything, watching shit happen,
See, I think that is not this is better, this is worse thing. I think it's just a different play style that
A preference.
you have besides me and Nate, because I know Nate and I like a lot of the same games. And I think that there's a different kind of pleasure to be found in, I've set this whole thing up, I'm ready to do it, and I'm going to go do it now. And then you watch the fruits of your labor, so to say, play out exactly how you want it to do, and then you react to different changing circumstances in the game, rather than I'm going to go in guns blazing and I'm going to react in the moment to everything that's going on, rather than like I feel good about myself for setting everything up correctly. You know what I mean? Like I foresaw what was going to happen and I set it up strategically, and now it's going to happen, rather than I'm just going to go in and wing it, which I think both are fun, but I find pleasure in kind of like having that strategic mind rather than tactical, which is what we were kind of talking about earlier. Tactical versus strategic.
Yeah, that's true.
Which both
Yeah.
are fun, but I don't know, I find the strategy a little bit more fun on my side, which is why I think that this is one of the only RTSs that I actually really like. You can pause it, you can strategize, you can adapt to what your enemy is sending at you, you can recycle. Like, I don't know any other RTS where, let's say you build, like in StarCraft, you build a shit ton of Marines, and then they send, I don't know what kills Marines in StarCraft, but they send a bunch of those at you.
bunkers and more bunkers.
You can't then take those Marines and then get all your resources back from them and build something else. You can do that in this. So you build up a whole fleet to fight this other fleet, and then in the next mission, if that fleet doesn't work anymore, you can recycle the whole thing, get all your resources back, and remake the entire thing based on what you're facing, which I think is a little bit more fun. And
Remember to open your beer in the mic, not in your shirt,
there
sir.
it is.
I was waiting. God, I was waiting.
You're
so
welcome,
long.
guys.
LaCroix.
LaCroix. Was that a LaCroix?
Yeah.
That is a PBR, sir.
That is a gold-winning
Pervert.
LaCroix.
That is a Pabst Blue Ribbon.
So I will say, if I had my druthers about playing this game and not having to and do it for the podcast, I would have, for the sake of the story, probably have played the prequel first. Probably went with Deserts, just so I could get that story, and then went into Homeworld. And also because that it's, from gameplay wise, it's incredibly different because it took away the 4D aspect. It's now
4X, yeah.
4X aspect.
Yeah,
and
it was
to 3, yeah.
Desert to Karak was
That's
what do they call that? A 2.1 or 2.5 RTS. And
Yeah,
you had-
and what was the original?
Homeworld's a 3D in that your
Yeah.
ships can move up and down. There's three axes, whereas Deserts, everything's on. Now, granted, there's altitude.
like normal, like normal RTS. Yeah.
There is altitude, and if your units are up high on a hill, they get some range advantage. And then you have air units, but they're kind of fire and forget. You can select them in the air and redirect them. It's not like with Command and Conquer where you better have your orcas control grouped, because if you don't, you can't select them in the air.
But I
And then
assume
you
that
can-
changed, like, I mean, it's Homeworld in name only, I would assume, in gameplay, because it just put it back towards, besides the, like, because I did see in some gameplay from watching that video earlier, like you said, there was a unit atop of a sand dune, and there was other, like, so there is that
altitude,
aspect, but it's obviously not as drastic
But then
as
there's
being
also
in space.
air units, yeah. Whereas you're in space, you have 3 dimensions of movement in Homeworld original.
So that is a thing that I kind of wanted to ask about, because I played Deserts of Karak, I think like 2 years ago when it first came out, for a little bit, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but I never really got into it. I think I was on vacation at the time, so I got distracted and never came back to it. But I only played it because I was interested in the lore. I don't like RTSs. I like Homeworld 1 and 2. but I hate RTSs because I'm really bad at them.
But isn't StarCraft an RTS? So you like StarCraft?
Yeah, but who doesn't like StarCraft?
Yeah, StarCraft isn't. So StarCraft,
Warcraft as well.
but he
Right, but again, also, I was way more into the lore of those two universes than
Yeah.
I was into the games.
And that-
I
so-
read all the books and everything.
That's true.
But I am interested to know how far into the lore did that game go? Was it heavy into the lore, or was it just kind of like like trying to money grab off of?
I'm gonna drag in two statements made. A, you saying you wanted to play them in chronological order. Jason saying that, and knowing you and your really enjoyment of deep lore, and we're maybe not in video gaming, but like knowing who you are and that you talk about things and you're like, this story's so great, and I like watch it. I'm like, this, it looks like shit, and you're like, no, the story will draw you in. Meaning a lot of manga, not manga, but like anime and other things, and
One Piece.
yeah, bringing in bringing in what you just said. When Deserts of Karak first came out, and I'm the fat kid, not now. Not now. Oh my god, I am now. I'm the fat kid again.
Me too.
But yeah, well, hey, but you shed a shit ton of weight. Like, you're not the fat kid anymore like you were
Got him.
5 years ago. When Deserts came out, I played it on release. You were on tour, and Nick and I were living at home back at our old place, and it came out, and I played like 4 missions, and I was like, this is where you come in, Jay. I had to call you and ask you what it was called like 3 weeks ago. We were talking on the phone. It was like, this is retcon bullshit. Because I sat at home at fucking 12, 13, 14, 15 playing all the games, reading the manuals alone while I cried at my lack of friends. And I lived in the neighborhood with you, and we just never hung out.
Asshole.
Yeah, well, it's because you didn't like me. Because all I wanted to do was come over and play Halo on your
You were an
Xbox.
asshole.
Yeah, well, nothing's changed. I'm just not as fat as I once was.
But now I like you.
Yeah. But like when Homeworld came out, the manual, I very vividly remember there's this talk of they launched an orbital scan. So when they first reached the space age, prior to finding anything, they just reached on their own the way we did, but there's no moon. So they didn't strive for the moon. They just, let's see if we can launch.
I never
something.
noticed that there isn't a moon.
Yeah,
you're
they
right,
don't have a moon. And there's so many videos on that I could talk about. Not related to this podcast. Sorry, guys. But so they first launched their first like satellite, the Karakians at the time, and they detect this orbital belt of debris around their planet, and they're like, "What the hell is all this?" And they
Kithid, I think they're called, right?
the Kithid is plural
Kithid,
of.
yeah.
I'll get in. I can go deep on lore if you want, but Kithid is the large family group. So Kithid is a plural. The Kith would be like a country to members of Earth.
Americans versus America.
was basically
yes,
that, yeah,
yes. The Kith would be a country. The Kithid would be the plural of Kith. So yeah, but Kith also means family. It's the family groupings. That's how their countries
Kindred.
work. Yeah, basically similar. But so they get up to orbit and they find this orbital belt, and so they grab some shit, they pull it down, they grab it, and they're like, "Holy crap!"
That's basically the last thing I saw.
This is advanced metallurgical stuff. There's clearly something out there. So they start launching satellites to look out because they very rapidly mine out this orbital belt of old ship parts.
It's like in Mass Effect when they find the Mass Effect
exactly like in Mass
on
Effect.
Mars.
Yeah.
But then, so they launched this one deep scan satellite that's specifically looking for metals, because the metals that they're finding are A, super valuable because they can only live on the poles on their own fucking planet, and B, valuable because it's advanced metallurgy that they have yet to accomplish. This satellite has an X inversion, so rather than facing outward, it's facing inward. It orbits 3 or 4 times before the coders check it, edit the code, and have it flick back out, and then they look at the data it drew up, and they find this big metal object in the center of the desert. It's the Kartoba. It's the ship that brought them to Karak from their homeworld, and they find one. Then when Deserts of Karak came out, they're like, we found millions! And during the game, you have to find these relics, and every time you find one, there's a little chunk in it.
I would be pissed.
I was furious.
Yeah,
I didn't play it for 2 years. It came out in 2016, 14?
Came out in 2016 in January.
I didn't play it again until like 2017 late or 2018 because I was just furious that it broke the canon established by the original manual for the original game.
They found like the one core in the deserts.
Yeah.
The pissed off stepdad. My stepdad was pissed because I printed the manual in color. The manual is entirely blue. Everything is blue. It's shades of blue. I burned our ink cartridge to the ground, and he's like, Boston, Junior, if you want to print stuff off, you just tell me. We can print it off in ways that save some ink. And I was like, I don't know how to park a car in a parkway or car park in a parkway, whatever Bostonians do. But like, he was furious because I printed off like 150 sheets of paper, and every different chapter had a fully blue sheet of paper with a white lettering. I just destroyed like $40 worth of ink. But by the end of the book, it was coming out yellow, and I couldn't.
But I
figure
mean,
out
worth it.
why. Agreed.
I have
You
all
didn't
of my.
beat me for that.
I have
Forever.
all of my manuals sitting right over here.
Yeah.
And I treasure those because you can never get them again.
When we moved out of the old place,
They
I
don't
threw
make
out,
them anymore.
in my bookshelf, there was a green binder. If you ever saw it, it was an 1.5-inch binder.
I remember it.
That was the manual for Homeworld 1 that I printed off
You
PDF.
threw it out?
I threw out my bookshelf.
You son of a bitch.
Like literally more than half the books on my bookshelf currently are my dad's, and then the other half is the ones I read regularly. So why did I throw that one out? Because it was 1.5 inch wide.
You know what? I'm just going to throw this out here. If we ever become like a popular podcast, help us, guys. I think that game companies should release maybe not even physical copies of discs or whatever, but if you want to pay like $5, $10, $15 extra, send me maps and manuals and
Just make a fucking PDF.
tech trees.
So
no, fuck that, because I
that's
have
what-
to print it out myself.
But that's
I
what
want-
Deserts did. That's what those videos were
a physical
about.
copy is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Those videos that you watched that you sent me on YouTube, the one I referenced earlier with the guy with 200 some odd subscribers, he was literally showing gameplay behind reading the manual.
No, yeah, that's, yeah,
and it was
exactly, yeah.
amazing because it was a PDF manual. I would love games to come out with like, you know, there's the gold, premium, standard, platinum, Omicronian, whatever editions.
Unobtainium.
And that's
Oh,
another
no,
thing
no,
about
no,
PC gaming that
edition?
I can have a gripe about in another fucking podcast.
But I would love for a special edition to come out, and it's like, here's $50 for a game, here's $60. We'll mail you a fucking manual. We're getting 10,000 of them printed. Who wants this?
That's what I'm talking about.
I would love that. I love that shit.
Maybe that's just us being old guys now.
Well, we are. I mean,
Like-
we check each other's
In
prostates
my
on the
day,
regular.
we got manuals to read.
lump me in with you two. I want the PDF at least.
God.
Man, fuck the PDF. I
Damn,
want to put it in my
youngin'.
bookshelf. I want to be able to pull it out in
Is
20
that your
years.
generation of fuck the police? Fuck the
Fuck the
PDF.
Oh my God, Snowden was right. It is a data culture.
I mean, yeah, I'm okay with admitting that maybe I am becoming one of those grumpy old men, but I want a physical copy of things that I'm paying for when it comes to art, because game manuals back then were art.
I'll agree with that. Like, I wouldn't, like, I'm a comic book fan. I wouldn't want a graphic novel in a PDF form or whatever the fuck they're called on Emotion. I think they're called like Emotion. Comic.
Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness. Not their lead artist, but one of their artists was named Chris Metzen.
Yeah,
That was my
he's
nickname
in
in high school.
charge
He's
now.
the VP of storyline,
Yeah.
and he does an amazing job.
No, he just got promoted.
Or he was the VP.
Now he's
so I
in
don't know
charge
what
of
he's
like everything.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I remember reading the Warcraft 2 manual and seeing like there was some good art, some bad art, and there was one guy, because they all signed him, that always had good art. Occasionally too much ink, but at the same time always great. And there was another artist that was always good, but his were always great. And like that sort of, I want to say, creative inspiration, that artistic ability leads into developing decent plot, leads into developing a good storyline, because you want
Attention to detail.
and exactly, and that's what these games are. Like these games I am leading into something. Blackbird, who created Deserts of Karak, was founded by the founding members of, not the founding members, but some of the founding members of THQ, which was founded in the creation of Homeworld, or they founded the studio and then made Homeworld. That attention to detail, attention to storyline, attention to canon, in my mind, when Deserts came out and they had multiple things, it pissed me off. It was retconning because they were digging it to create a game. They were doing it out of love, and going back and playing Deserts through, they really were. They have a commitment to this game and the lore they made and the universe they created for, at the time, me, a 13-year-old. They did retcon it a bit, but they did it with a passion that wasn't a money grab. That, like, really, these games, I'll play 3. I didn't like 1 or 2, but I'll play 3 because, God, I love this team.
What do you mean
this
you
studio.
didn't like 1 or 2?
All right.
You're so full of shit.
I started
Well, I
on
guess-
Cataclysm.
I guess
I
I-
started on Barking Dogs.
I guess that's a good segue to like best and like
Well,
least
no.
favorite.
This was a perfect segue to our bonus, which we alluded to the last episode. Nate played Cataclysm, which is not even called
and I don't
Cataclysm
Emergence.
now. It's
Homeworld
called
Emergence.
Nate, just tell everyone what happened with the naming.
So, Homeworld Cataclysm was the first video game named Cataclysm. World of Warcraft Cataclysm came out. One of the best expansions to World of Warcraft. The one that got me back into it. I'm not into it anymore.
What about Wrath of the Lich King? Never mind.
Yeah. We'll do a different podcast on that one. We'll scream at each other the entire time. No one will listen.
Looking forward to it.
Me too, honestly. But so Homeworld Cataclysm came out, and Homeworld was so popular, they started immediately into the dev of Homeworld 2, but Homeworld 1 had already run like 18 months long. Now, granted, Homeworld was given a 2-year dev time. They spent 16 months in dev, and they spent 8 months polishing it. So this is a long...
That's a fucking awesome ratio.
And exactly, and that's why, like, we'll get to the remasters later, but I'm not a fan because it lacks that in my mind. Now, granted, modern game development's different, but they started Homeworld 2, and the team wanted to be loyal to Homeworld 1, but the publisher, from my understanding, and I don't have any citations on this isn't in the wiki, this is my opinion, wanted something right now. Give me something new that I can sell on the tails of Homeworld 1. And so they contacted Barking Dog, a different studio, and they made Homeworld Cataclysm in the engine, and oh my god. So it's 16 years after you retake the home planet, and it's
Spoil.
Yeah, shut up. 15 years. But the intro videos, it's got all the THQ trademarks. The black and white hand-animated images that the camera moves on during the narration. The man's voice is so deep. Everything's perfect and flawless. And then the gameplay was everything I wanted in Homeworld 1 that wasn't there. Granted, I did play Homeworld 1 significantly later. But, like, it was flawless. This was my first game into the series. When I went back and played Homeworld 1, I was angry. Because simple little interface things in Homeworld 2 weren't there.
You're talking about remastered, right?
No. I'm talking about going back and playing Homeworld 1 when I was a teenager. Because I played Homeworld Cataclysm first, which came out like a year and a half later.
Okay.
And, like, it had everything. And your enemy is basically a cellular Borg.
The Flood?
No, because the Flood are human-sized. The Borg are human-sized and ship-sized. The Beast is cellular. That's their level. They are a cell. It's a biomechanical virus.
Well, that is the Borg, isn't it? They start as a
Borg
cell.
have to take a body and they inject the nanites.
Nanites?
Well, yeah, that come out of the nanotubules. And Terry Ryan is 7 to 9.
Jerry Ryan. Oh, she's going to be in Picard.
So, everybody let's just take a few seconds to get our heart rates under control, and then we'll start talking again about this video game. But the Beast is a cellular nanovirus. It's a partially mechanical, partially biological cell that takes over something at a cellular level. When a Beast beam or a Beast cruise missile hits a fighter, it needs something to control all the systems. What it does is rip apart the pilot at a cellular level to reassemble them as a neural control network. Dude, when you beat Homeworld Cataclysm, the images, they show these grizzled fucking pilots in these modern space helmets. And then it flashes, and they show a skeleton screaming, and all the flesh is ripped apart, touching every control interface in the cockpit. Oh, so dark, so good. It's so perfect. And going back to my research on Homeworld, the strengths were the plot. The weaknesses were the difficulty curve and a few minor bugs. Cataclysm had the time to take that original engine, play the first game, polish those bugs till they weren't bugs. They were just super shiny beetles that were content, and it was so flawless. And the one fault I've ever had with Homeworld 1 was your fleet is unlimited in Homeworld 1, not the remaster, but the original Homeworld is unlimited. You can build whatever the hell you want, you can capture as many ships as you want, but the way they keep you semi-low strength, because even though the AI is adaptive in terms of its fleet composition, it's limited. It can't just create a super fleet. Their limiting factor to you was resources given. So if you made a mistake and you lost that new destroyer you just built, if you lost that wing of bombers you sending up against defenders, you're fucked.
That makes sense.
I love that, though.
And it's unforgiving. It's old school game, and I've learned to love that in Homeworld 1, 2, and Deserts.
You're not just playing missions, you're playing the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas Cataclysm limited you by support units. The idea was, with Homeworld 1, you had the mothership. You had the last of your population. You had 600,000 of, according to Homeworld, I think, like, 500 million, according to
No, it wasn't 1 billion. It was 1 million. Remember, because,
hold on. I'm getting there. According to Homeworld's manual, 500 million. According to Deserts of Karak, 260 million, which would be 250 million. Deserts of Karak, that's one more thing they retconned, which pissed me off initially, was that in the Homeworld...
But doesn't that make sense, though, for like a freaking desert planet?
I think
for
$500 million is 500 million versus 260. But they had established a number in the Homeworld 1 manual, and they retconned it with Cataclysm, which aggravated me.
Grumpy men.
I am. I'm so grumpy about it. And that's... But I've learned to love this game because I've learned to love Homeworld. I started on Cataclysm, but they limited you with support units. So you had a really big ship called the Kunlun, which was like... It was a mothership class vessel, but the mothership had the last 600,000 individuals of your fucking species on it. You got 600,000 people, you can find 20,000 people who can be trained into pilots. So you have an unlimited number of pilots, therefore an unlimited number of fighters. With the Kunlun, you had support modules, which had people in stasis, sleepers, but they were pilots, they were mechanics, they were whatever. So you were limited by your total fleet capacity, limited by your support modules, your hangar bays. Your carriers could carry support modules as well, which were these exterior modules that were super
I just
soft.
point out, though, that at least in the remastered versions, which Jay and I played, you are fleet limited.
You have a fleet limit. Now, there were, in the multiplayer of the original Homeworld 1, it fleet limited for the fact that assholes named Nate Lamb in Tampa would build 20,000 mine layers and lay 20 million mines and say fuck you to the entire group of people who were playing this online game. So they fleet limited you for processor ability and bandwidth. Yeah.
That's funny. So you're being a Nick, pretty much.
We found him.
No,
we found him.
No, because Nick beats people. I just made it so that people couldn't win.
No. Nick would build all resource controllers and all resource harvesters and just get all the resources and leave you to starve. That's what he would do.
You know what a great multiplayer strategy was back in the day, especially in Homeworld 1. It didn't work in Cataclysm as far as I know. You build a shit ton of scouts. You send them to... So the three of us are playing a multiplayer game. I build a shit ton of scouts. Let's say I build 40 scouts. I send 20 to Jason's start area and 20 to yours. And you know what I have those scouts do? Attack your asteroids, which then blow up and turn to nothing. Non-harvestable. Good day, sir, you lose. You cannot... And meanwhile, the only resources left on the map are mine. First time I played a multiplayer game in Homeworld and Homeworld Cataclysm, that shit happened to me, and it's the Zergling Rush. The proper player learns to counter, but the first time player,
even I know
the game experience is ruined, and it is the Zergling Rush of this game.
I think Zergling Rush has become kind of like a... if not mainstream term, a gamer...
An understandable term among gamers in terms of,
Yeah, everyone knows what a Zergling Rush is. I do have to say, real quick, though, as far as the remastered versions go, when... who was it? THQ bought Relic. I don't remember what year it was, but they bought them, and they were the ones who made the remastered. And they bought, I think, for like $1.3 million. Like, it was kind of like peanuts. Really.
So, here's my... This is straight out of Wikipedia for... Deserts of Karak. Straight out of Wikipedia. Oh, hold up. Wrong one. Oh, God, edit this out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Gearbox bought the IP of Homeworld during THQ's bankruptcy in 2013. So they didn't buy the whole studio. They bought the IP because Gearbox knew they wanted to make more Homeworld games and they wanted to make the remastered. But they didn't buy the whole studio. That's why it seems like such a low value, because they didn't say THQ, we don't want Company of Heroes, we don't want Company of Heroes 2, we don't want somebody to come up with a really bad THQ game.
There's a lot.
Jeff plays pinball and you watch the game. THQ, why did you ever make that?
What the fuck are you talking about?
I made up a game that I don't know if that THQ ever made a bad game.
You were staring at me in the eyes when you said that. I was like, I'm not Jeff, and I don't know what you're saying to me.
I lock eyes intently when I lie. You may notice I do that a lot during poker.
I have. Why do you think I always win?
But yeah, they didn't. They just bought the IP of Homeworld. As far as I know, according to Wikipedia on dev for Homeworld Deserts of Karak.
Well, here's the thing that I thought was really cool about it. Was Homeworld is, I don't know if it's cult classic status because it was fairly popular in its time. I don't know if a lot of people play it now, but when they bought it, they bought it with the intent of making a remastered version. And when they got into the code, they realized that shit, like this code is broken and it's not gonna work. So they reached out to the mod community who had been active for many, many, many years, and they brought in a lot of that mod community to make the game, which I think is fucking sick.
Yeah, that's cool.
You have people who love this IP so much that they are on their free time for free on the Steam Workshop or wherever you have it, before Steam was a thing, I'm sure they were doing it, releasing patches and doing a thing, which I used one of those patches as well on my remastered version, and they gave them jobs to do it, which I thought was, pretty cool.
They're pretty slick, actually. Like, super sick. Speaking on its popularity, when it came out, it was the highest rated computer game of the year, the fourth highest game of the year. It tied with Street Fighter Alpha and Gran Turismo 2 for the fourth slot, so there was first place.
What the fuck?
First
Which
place.
one is this?
This is Homeworld 1. First place was Soul Calibur.
That's a good game.
The three...
The
Never
fighting
cared.
game?
Yeah. Yep.
So you had a fighting
never
game, a
cared for
racing
this game.
game.
And so there was the first place game of the year from all systems that year was Soul Calibur. A three-way tie on Metacritic for number 2, which would make it number 4 since it's a three-way tie plus number 1. So the three-way tie for fourth was Street Fighter Alpha 3, Gran Turismo 2, and Homeworld. It's the 28th highest rated computer game of all time.
No shit.
Yes.
Wow.
And if you look at user score on its release year, the only game it lost to was Soul Calibur, the fighting game.
That blows my mind.
I've never played Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur.
I have been drinking all night of her. But after researching that, I was like, I gotta play Soul Calibur. I have to go check that out.
I mean, no, you really don't. A fighting game is a
Have
fighting
you guys
game.
played
and
Soul Calibur?
I
Oh my
might
God, I
get
can't say
hate
it
for
right.
this, but
I've played, yeah.
a fighting game is a fighting game. What are you really going to get besides different fighters and
It's
different moves?
basically like those, like it's the Dead or Alives or whatever the fuck.
Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct.
No,
all-
it wasn't. No. The thing is, it's separate from Mortal. So it's not like your Mortal Kombat's or Street Fighters. It's like the Dead or Alives or what's that other one? Tekken. It's like those Tekken. It's like that.
Got
It's
a
all
Jaguar
the
head,
same
motherfuckers.
shit.
No.
Here's what I'm saying.
There's definitely differences between like Capcom games and those.
If you're
A
in
fighting
London,
game, at least to me, is a fighting game. I don't know. Like, how different can you really get with, like, here's your fighter, here's your
I
fighter?
don't know. Would you lump Smash Brothers into that?
Yes?
yeah,
No.
but it's a better game. Here's all I'm saying.
I wouldn't even say that it's a better game. I'd just say it's way too different of a fighting game.
We seem really conflicted on fighting games. We are all Florida men, and
Oh,
that's
no.
because for us, fighting games are done in an alley with PBR cans.
and the referee's an alligator.
And we're gonna pause this podcast and go out back and beat the hell out of each other for no fucking reason.
Oh, no, there's a reason.
You literally live on an alley, by the way. This was an alley that got turned into a road.
Correct, so
Haha, Clinton Dix Road. That's not a real street.
we can just go straight outside and take care of this.
I go.
Maybe I think that this might be a reason we have to do a fighting game at some point in the
Agreed.
future.
definitely. Yeah.
If you guys feel the same, please go to one of our socials and let us know, because we
I'm
need
voting.
some suggestions.
I'm voting for Soul Calibur.
We'll see.
Voice acting is obviously my thing, so as soon as I heard the narrator of this game, I knew immediately who he was. And it's hubris on my part where I kind of don't want to look on IMDb or Wikipedia because I'm just like, I know it's this guy, and I don't
you?
want to be wrong.
Have you?
I did actually this time. Yeah, this time I did. It was Campbell Lane, and he was the narrator for actually a lot of sci-fi things. I can't remember. There's one video that I watched for the specific thing that I'm going to talk about. That he was famous for doing narrations for sci-fi. For Gundam Wing, which is a very popular American, or obviously it was an anime, but it was a very popular one in Western audiences, specifically in America for what was it? Nate will attest to this, 2000, early 2000s and
I wasn't
whatnot.
listening. I'm sorry.
Oh my god.
Sorry. You pointed at me and I was like, "You're the one who wanted me to bring this shit up because
don't know.
you brought up Campbell Lane. I can't remember, so I'm pulling up his IMDb and I'm looking at it as quietly as I can. I'm so sorry.
I don't know why you're talking to Nate about it. Nate doesn't watch anime.
No, I
He's seen.
do. Yeah, I've watched quite a bit of anime. I just don't.
Since when?
High school. It was all high school and middle school
So
And that's why I'm bringing it up.
15 years ago.
and college.
So 10 years ago.
I recently rewatched Cowboy Bebop 2 days ago.
Yeah. But Gundam Wing was a very popular. It started the whole. It was along with Dragon Ball Z.
Everybody knows Gundam
along with
Yeah.
Toonami. So Toonami had the big three. It had Dragon Ball Z. It had Gundam Wing, and then a third one I can't think of right now. Probably like Yu Yu Hakusho or Yu-Gi-Oh or something. No, probably earlier.
I know what you're talking about.
Inuyasha.
Inuyasha,
there you
go. Which
Yeah.
I got into due to exposure, but not due to want at any point. It was just always on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. I still remember the fucking ads for it on Adult Swim, which were hilarious.
I'm just trying to watch Robot Chicken, goddammit.
yeah.
Show me the old Family Guy I missed.
But yeah, and I knew right off the bat he was the Sam Naderator. Naderator.
The narrator.
The Naderator! So if you're having trouble picturing him, Daniel, from his voice,
I wasn't, but I am now.
he's credited in Cataclysm as 2, the narrator.
He was also in Battlestar Galactica, actually.
Yep.
He was in the show.
He's
him,
the voice.
like, physically?
Physically, yeah.
Who
or
was
was he
he?
a voice? I'm pretty sure he was in there physically.
He's in flashbacks in ReZOURCERS, the miniseries. He's the first hybrid.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he's been around.
He's the Bentusi, the voice of the Bentusi. That's
I
the
have
voice.
a bone to pick with him. And I've always felt this since the first time I played Homeworld 1, and I feel it in 2 as well. I don't know if he's in Karak. I don't know if he's in
He's also
Cataclysm.
he's also the traitor too. The guy that we were just yelling at before that always just comes in, who gave me like
The Bentusi. Yeah.
yeah, the Bentusi. There you go.
the traitor, yes, not the traitor.
Traitor, not
traitor.
traitor. Yes. The bone I have to pick with this motherfucker
Trait the Old Republic.
is that he says resource and resourcers rather than resource and resourcers, and everyone else in that game says resource and resourcers rather than what it should be as resource and resourcers. And it drives me up a fucking wall every time I hear it, and I think it's his fault because they all took his direction because he's the narrator.
My understanding, which is possibly incorrect and not based off anything, American game, American studio, Vancouver, British Columbia, narrator.
I love the Canadian,
Yeah,
so
he's
I
Canadian,
Me too.
yeah.
At
But
least
there
he's not
are
a
slight
fucking
differences
German.
in our accent.
What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, Jesus
I've
Christ.
yelled about the Germans every single episode of this podcast. I love you guys.
That's true. Yeah, he has. I mean, and also about every week I've known him since we were 15. No, you started that shit after college. You didn't used to say like the Germans.
The Germans?
Yeah, very crafty. All the,
I just feel like I have to.
Yeah.
Don't take me wrong. I love the Germans, but it's just fun to make fun of you.
no, exactly. No, it's
We're American. Everybody makes fun of us, so we're allowed.
And
One of my best friends is German. So
Yeah,
there you
and
go.
we-
Manu
we
Kanya.
make-
Never mind. That's not his name. We'll edit that out. Sorry,
Great.
Manny.
Good job.
he lives with us at 123 Fake Street, State Soda, North Carolina, Florida.
Resources. Resourcers under attack. What? There's no Z in that word, and I'm surprised neither of y'all have said anything about it.
I guess I really haven't heard him.
You will now.
I know him as the voice of the Bentusi.
Oh, the same as like, give me a soda.
Oh, Jesus, that fucking song. But I know him as, at least in this game, as the voice of the narration and the voice of the Bentusi. The narration is...
Bentusi or Bentusi?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed this last month, as we've been talking about it, you guys have been saying Karak, and I've been saying Karak.
I mean,
Or
I've
the
been
reverse.
asking every time I've
There's
just
an
been saying
H.
Homeworld,
There's an
to be
H
quite
after
honest.
the K, so it's, I always like overpronounce the A, like Kar, and yeah, you should
Like a fucking Klingon.
I was thinking more like somebody whose jaw just got ripped off their face, like that Japanese really terrifying movie that was terrifying.
Speaking of, actually, with Klingon, did you ever look into what was it, an add-on or a mod to make it like Star Trek?
They
ships
have
and stuff?
many of them. They
Yeah.
have mods on the Steam Workshop to make it Star Trek, Star Wars, Battlestar,
That's cute.
anything
my-
you want.
Do they have Gundam?
I'm probably sure you could find one.
In my opinion, though, this engine and this even with the remastered looks great. This engine isn't as good as other games that have done covers, like Sword of the Stars, Sins of a Solar Empire. Sins, specifically, that engine was used to make some of the best Star Trek war games, like space war games, I've seen. This engine, I love it. I would not.
Well, it depends on what kind of game you want to play.
And it also probably depends on the person doing the mod.
I would like to play this game with Battlestar ships. I'd love to see some Cylon Raiders fighting some Vipers.
Wouldn't you love to see that, Lee?
What was
I would
the
love to
game-
see that, Lee.
What was the game years ago that we played, and it was either Battlestar or Star Trek Skin on another game?
We played Stellaris, and I think that we played...
Well, but Stellaris is turn-based. There was a real-time game.
Stellaris is not turn-based. That's real-time.
What's the turn-based I'm thinking of?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like I should be the one to answer that question.
You should.
Let's talk about Alex Garden for a while.
Who the hell is Alex Garden?
Oh my god. He's the guy, the director of the game. He founded the studio that created this game. He founded THQ at 22 years old. What have you done?
Me?
Yeah.
I started a podcast about 6 months ago.
At 31?
No, I'm 32.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, so I was 32 and a half. Oh, shit. I'm
You
a co-host on a
fucking
podcast.
old guy.
Alex Garden, let's talk about how much he's overaccomplished us.
Don't let me into that shit. I'm only 27 over
Yeah,
here.
and he
okay?
was 22.
Yeah, so.
Long pause.
Listen, we're all failures. It's okay. We're all failures together, though.
This is America. We can start whenever we want.
That's right.
That's actually really
Land of
fucking-
opportunity.
Sure, yeah. Not anymore.
Oh my god. I have an idea.
What?
Nate, what was your favorite part about this game?
You know when a computer is a little older and has clicked too many times and just freezes up? That's about where I am right now. So, how about we start at one of you two? Holy shit. The lore. It's the lore. I loved every part of this fucking game. I've loved these games forever. Every piece of them. Like, I've literally, as of this podcast, stalked people, and not unknowingly or unknowingly stalked them by playing their games over and over. The lore, though, for me...
Wait.
You're going to have to elaborate on that.
Aaron,
What?
The dude Dimbe. We talked about it earlier.
You're
in the podcast.
stalking
What?
people?
I'm not stalking him intentionally. Oh, you guys don't remember the names I brought up that are only in the Word document in front of me. Aaron Dimbo.
You're stalking Mr. Dimbo. It's what you're saying right
Yes,
now.
not in real life, but like I've gone through my gaming life playing games and knowing these certain games that are they're just what I want. They grab me, they dig me, they drag me in. I dig them, and they're perfect. And it's all on storyline, and it's all on like StarCraft. I loved because of the storyline. I got into the multiplayer much later. Company of Heroes, which was THQ as well, I loved because of the storyline. Multiplayer came later, and but storyline is what drags me into a game, kicking and screaming. Chris Metzen from Blizzard, although yo guys, stand up for Hong Kong for God's sakes.
Thank you.
Aaron Dimbo. Yeah, the minute I said Blizzard, I was
I
like,
don't
oh, shit.
condone this.
Okay,
I'm
well.
hoping for some Disney credit over here, maybe Blizzard.
Well, fuck you.
Okay, yeah. I think democracy should beget
Cue
democracies in
sarcasm,
all situations.
obviously.
All right, we're not. It's not a politics contest, but podcast. My lord, I am intoxicated. I'm full on slurring words.
Welcome to the command center.
Yeah, okay, cool. But
Gives me the command
this guy
center.
Dimbo has been lore for this game. He did a bunch of work with Martin, last name mispronounced.
Scorsese.
The lore of this game drags me in so much. All of them, going from Cataclysm to Homeworld 1. Homeworld 2, I was skeptical of because I didn't think the lore was going to be there, and I finished it for this podcast. Holy shit! And even the game I was supposed to play, and the one I played first, Deserts of Karak, I was angry at it because it was retconning, but then the lore was so good. Everything was so done with a loving fervor for what this storyline is, what this universe they've created for the consumer, the viewer, the player is so fucking amazing.
And I gotta throw in just right there, because that is such a loved franchise, and because at least I know the two of us, and I think that Jason now has found like a newfound, maybe not love, but he really liked the
respect.
lore and all that. They have announced Homeworld 3.
Yes.
And it will be coming out, so keep an eye out for it.
I plan to hate it when it comes out and then love it afterwards. Like
Exactly.
I've done with every
yeah.
fucking game.
I mean, I'm gonna love it from the get-go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just excited to see a new Homeworld game. I mean, they waited from 2003 to 2016 to make
Remastered and Deserts.
to make the Deserts from Homeworld 2. So it seems like a long wait. I guess it wasn't really, but I don't really consider Deserts part of that continuation, because I think that 3 is going to be a continuation of the story.
Yeah. Deserts
Forward.
Deserts was a prequel.
Deserts
was a
exactly.
love story written to see what the market would respond to, similar to the remastered release.
And apparently, it was a good
positive,
response.
Yeah, and it is, yeah.
So least favorite part,
The bugs. God damn the bugs. And
we should say real quick that Nate played the original version.
yes.
Jason and myself played the remastered versions, which fixed some bugs and brought up some new ones.
Which is also throw some love at Good Old Games. Right now, it's Homeworld Emergence. Good Old Games is the only place to get it. This game was lost for like 6 years. Good Old Games picked up 5 or 6 different sets of code and merged them together, updated them, put them back together for what was Cataclysm. The remaster comes when you buy Homeworld 2 Remastered. You get Homeworld 1 and 2 Remastered and Homeworld 1 and 2 source code. I don't know if it's on Gearbox or Blackbird, but the remastered version's user interface gives you so much more information. It's amazing. You can click on a group of 12 fighter squadrons and it'll tell you how many fighters are left in each. That's super useful information, but I had so much trouble interfacing. And that the interface, I think, was just lack of adaptation. But then when I did play the remastered, it has one multiplayer feature where you can play all 4 fleets, 1, 2, the bad guys and good guys, Kashan and Tidan, or Hagaran and what's the bad guys? Vaegir. All their fleets have their own strengths and weaknesses, and it's great because they've evened them out. The fact that there's like 100 years of game time, no, they kept them even. But I played one just friggin' match against some computers of all varying difficulties just to see what it was like, and I played as the Tidan. I couldn't build my heavy cruisers, I couldn't build bombers, I couldn't build defense frigates. Like, about a third of my fleet was missing, and they were specialist thirds, but a heavy cruiser is not a specialist. That's something you build en masse late game. So I had to counter by building destroyers, which were fleet limited, so then I had to play differently. Now, granted, I was playing against 4 easy, 2 hard, 2 medium, but they're just bugs all over the remastered. And when I played, granted, it was through the remastered purchase, I started on 2 remastered as my second game or third game to play just because I was bored, and it was a struggle for me. So I went back to vanilla, and I believe it's the original. It's the same engine, it's just a graphical update. I had, I'll say, fewer bugs. Meanwhile, Good Old Games put out a game compiled out of 6 different code sets. There was one glitch in the whole game, and a planet didn't render correctly. So rather than being an orbital view of a planet, it was a big yellow circle. So I knew where it was. You weren't fighting on the planet, you were fighting above it, so it didn't matter. It was just the background image was broke. This game has been remastered by Blackbird and Gearbox. There should be very few bugs.
And the mod. And the mod community.
And I don't know if the mods have...
The mod community was heavily...
Was what they built.
Okay, true. Who helped with the remaster.
And that may be where the trouble is, that they have a bunch of mods they're trying to put in to make the game...
And they ended up employing a lot of those guys, which is what I was saying earlier, which I thought was pretty cool.
And
so, favorite part was the
lore.
The lore, and least favorite part was the bugs.
Yeah, which, I mean, when I played them back in the day...
when you get a remaster, you expect there's not going to be a lot of bugs.
Exactly. That's exactly
right. All right, Jay, favorite part?
All right. Favorite part was probably, I want to say lore, but I don't want to be a basic bitch because he just said lore.
But if that's your favorite part, that's your favorite part.
It's not necessarily my favorite part, though, because I'm conflicted between lore and gameplay, even though gameplay, honestly, isn't something that I necessarily liked, but I honestly fucking loved. I was, like, engulfed in playing this game and making formations, making sure all these things went right. Even though most of the time it didn't, and it was probably just dumb luck.
Well, it definitely draws you in because it makes you have to pay attention because there's always something going on. Yeah.
I mean, like I said before, and that would probably go towards my least favorite, and that's towards RTSs in general, where there are times that you're kind of just sitting there and watching shit happen, even though, like you said, there is a joy seeing like everything go into fruition. There's still a part of me that wants to, if there was a game, and you guys would know more than me, that like takes an aspect of that, but then also puts, like, maybe XCOM is kind of like that, probably not, but you have that strategic aspect of, you set up this fleet, you're going to set up and do this thing, but then you're also in, like, you take a part of one of the ship, you are actually the fighter, you also actually are the shooter and whatnot. If there is a game like that, let me know, but that's probably my least favorite part about it. Other than glitches, I can't really say because I didn't play the original. The graphics... There was one part, I just kept on forgetting that it was the same engine for 1 and 2, because the way that the setup in the command center is, like I said before, we have our computers together, and so I was playing 1, Dan was playing 2 next to me, and I kept on looking over at his PC and being like, oh, what the fuck? It's supposed to be the second one? It looks like there's no graphical difference, and be like, oh, wait. Yeah. That's right, it's still the same engine, because it's a remaster.
Go back and launch the original Coda 1, because I played it all the way through 2 on the original, and then I walked into this garage and saw Daniel playing 2 remastered. I was like, holy shit, that looks sharp. Why didn't I play that? And I was like, oh, right, because I got in a fight with the interface and then was a petulant bitch and never went back.
And that's the thing, though. The interface, I will say that it's probably the best interface of an RTS I've ever played. Just because I got it. There were some stuff that, oh, shit, like the hovering thing. If I hadn't hovered over this one key part, I wouldn't have noticed that there was weaknesses and strengths. But it felt easy to me. There was still like a clunkiness to it, like I said before, when I was trying to, because of like the 3D-ness, where it was like the way that you go about navigating this 3D plane was a bit clunky, where you had to go straight first and then navigate up or down. And they didn't, maybe in the tutorial they kind of made that apparent, but like,
it's a new mechanic for RTSs.
Yeah.
Especially for the time it was released. Yeah. That was a whole new revolution.
That was something that I just had to have in the back of my head, and I just kept on fucking it up because it was a new thing to me. And
right.
Yeah.
Star Trek Fleet Commander 3 came out after Homeworld 1. It added that in. This is a 2.5D. You could go up and down, but the map was as tall. The map was 1% height and 99% width. It was a 2D RTS that you could now go top and bottom, but you could always see each other. This is a box. It's a cube where you have to fight in this cube. So going up and down is a really big issue, but it's the first game that ever did it. So it's a little bit clunky, and I feel like my fight has always been, this interface isn't right, but if all three of us design an interface, there are going to be three very vastly different interfaces to deal with the same problem, and that is what it is that, like, they tried to optimize it as best as possible. My personal anger and rage towards the interface is in my way. It's getting in the way of me reading this story.
That's another one of the things that I loved about this game, though, that the first time I played, I think it was with the Scouts. It's a very realistic game where, they had their formation, they went in for their attack, and then they just kept on going. And then they were coming back. But I didn't realize it was going to be like that, and they were just going off into space. I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, but then they're coming back, and I was like, oh, shit. Okay, I see. So it's actually, like, taking physics in mind.
Interestingly enough, it's not. Because if you were flying in space, you don't have to fly by and come back. You just stop and you fire. There's no momentum. Or, I mean, no momentum.
There's momentum,
but,
but there's not. Yeah.
You would just pivot in place and fire backwards.
Like in Battlestar, where they had the thrusters.
So they use real physics.
Yeah. There's a thing.
So this does not use real physics. They treat these space fighters like they are in an atmosphere.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm going to disagree with you there. So there was, and I don't have it in my notes, but in the Wikipedia of one of the things the dev team made certain to do was integrate real, and here's agreeing with you and disagreeing with you, integrate real fighter maneuvers, and it's I don't remember what it's called, I didn't put it in my notes, but it's a flip and turn. And so, like in Battlestar Galactica, the new one, you see the flip and turn, so you keep your guns facing the enemy, but you sustain your momentum, so you have to fight it with your engines.
Right.
And the fighters in Cataclysm and 1 to some degree did that, where they would flip and turn, but one of the things the fighters did that is, I would think, atmospheric and not spatial is, and it makes sense and it doesn't, your bombers would run a bombing run, fire bombs far out, fire bombs in close, then zip off. They would wait to flip and turn until they knew they had the distance to get off 2 more rounds on the way back, which made sense with the bombers. But the fighters have chain guns. They should, the minute they pass, be letting their inertia carry them and flip and keep their guns facing. But with the bombers, where the bomb recharges like 60 seconds, makes sense. With the fighters, makes less sense.
I guess what I mean is, like, if this was a real space battle, you would just do like a sphere. Just go around and always be facing the enemy and always be firing.
But if you're not moving at a high speed, so granted, if this was a real space battle, we've never had one as humans. We don't know. It's only conjecture.
Wouldn't that depend on there would need to be thrusters.
It depends on your target.
Yeah.
If you're fighting something that has a lot of fast tracking guns, you're gonna whip in at I don't know. Was it Mach 25 is orbital velocity? You're going to whip in at Mach 50 so that the tracking guns literally don't have time to track you. If you're fighting something with no tracking guns, you're going to park and just hose.
Well, I mean, we could debate real life space battles forever.
Can we do that?
We'll start another podcast. But I guess what I mean is, like, it wasn't quote unquote real physics. If you were to have a real space battle,
the fighters had a maximum speed, whereas in space, your maximum speed is how long do you have to accelerate.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So my favorite part was, and again, this is because I played the remastered version. I played both the original release, and the remastered. I am talking only about the remaster. I loved the upgrade in the graphics. I love the fucking original game. I fucking love that game. It is one of my favorites of all time. I think that the story and the gameplay and everything just meshes so well. It just gets you engaged, and you like Jason said, like, you have to pay attention. You have to be watching the entire time. Except for like when you said like, oh well, I just did things and I'm watching it happen. But the way I play, I want to make sure that my interceptors are attacking the right groups. I want to make sure my bombers are at the right place. I want to be watching and make sure if this frigate is damaged, it's getting repaired. So I'm always engaged when I'm playing. And I think that when you guys came over earlier, you guys were talking and trying to talk to me, and I was playing a mission, and I was not listening whatsoever because I was trying to play the game. I like being that engaged in the game, and I absolutely love the lore. I think that my favorite part is just the game itself and just all the games, with the exception of Deserts, because I didn't play that one. I just think they're really, really well made all around. My least favorite part with the remasters were the bugs, because I feel like if you're going to remaster a game and they were working from scratch, the original coding didn't work, so they had to rebuild it pretty much from the ground up. But if you're going to do that, and I think that the studio folded at a certain point.
I didn't catch that in my research.
I think that Gearbox folded at a certain point, and that's why now it's up to the community.
Well, no, but they're the ones who are launching 3, right? Or is Blackbird launching 3 on their own?
I think that Gearbox folded, or Relic, or whoever.
No, well, Relic,
I think that one of them folded. But I think if you're going to make a remastered, cool, put the new graphics on it. I love it. I like playing 1 with 2's graphics. I think it looks amazing. But fix all the goddamn bugs, because I played it and I remember playing 2, and 2 was really hard and I got stuck at a certain point, but I tried to play 2 now and it was literally impossible. And I was stuck on mission 4, and I googled Homeworld 2 mission 4, and the first suggested thing that came up was mission 4 impossible. So I knew it wasn't just me. And there was a fan patch, and the fans are patching this game continuously to fix it, because it literally was impossible. They changed the algorithms, and they just threw all these fleets at you, and the game became unenjoyable and unplayable.
3 full fleets at you when it should throw 1.5. One really strong fleet.
So it made it literally unplayable. I hate to use that.
About a week ago, we had a discussion. It was like, how did you beat Mission 4? I'm playing the original on the remastered purchase. You can play the original Homeworld 2, not the remastered. And I was like, that was a really hard mission, because I attacked the center and got swamped with 2 fleets, and then I attacked left on my replay and was able to take 2 fleets separately. And you're like, I'm getting 3 every time. And it wasn't until later we were discussing you're playing the remastered, and there's basically a bug where the AI says whatever your fleet is, give it 3 times that strength, but instead of that, it did 3 fleets, right? Like, so yeah,
it was that one specific mission.
Yeah,
that had a
there
bug.
was one glitch. Yeah,
but if you can't advance, then you can't play anymore.
That's unexcusable for a fucking remaster of the game.
Exactly. Yeah. For sure.
If you've got to rebuild the engine, that sucks. But if you're putting out a remaster, it needs to be flawless. Yeah.
When I looked up that fan patch was made by a lot of the modders that they hire to make the remaster version. So they might have, the company might have folded, the studio might have folded. But they fixed it.
Gearbox is still in operation. They're the when they purchased the IP, the Gearbox released the high definition is literally what the Wikipedia says, but the remastered is all under Gearbox. So there was no full on the remaster, but
no, not on the remaster, after the fact, for patches and all that.
Oh, true. Oh, and that could be, I don't know who's making 3.
I remember just reading somebody folded.
Yeah. The original studio, THQ, but so it could also be that, and this is not to knock their ability, and honestly, everything they've done that I've played is amazing. They hired a bunch of modders who brought in their own created mods to make, and they all probably brought this in on the game. You're combining now 6, 7, 12 people's code.
They're not combining code. They didn't hire modders to buy their code. They hire the modders to.
But there's what I'm saying. They brought in these people who have making mods for Homeworld 2 and Homeworld 1. Oh, I remember when I did this 5 years ago. I built this mission. I want to use it. I've got this old thing. Well, 5 years ago, you weren't the coder you are today. It's possible that they brought in glitches that were from previous in their career.
It could be.
I don't know how to program. I don't know if that's even remotely possible, but that sounds like that one specific mission, talking about it with you, with Mission 4, Homeworld 2, was...
It could be.
It was rough. Yeah.
It could be. I mean, but I will say, with the way that things are now, with right there on Steam, you have the workshop, I think that you can easily go in there. Like, I Googled once and I found the solution.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, well, this game got abandoned. And here's where all those people who made the game fixed it after the fact. Pretty fucking cool to me, because then I was able to continue playing. And now it's not a game that I bought that was ruined. But that's still, my least favorite fact was that I had to do that. Still enjoy the shit out of it.
Yeah. I never finished 2 before this podcast, and that's a great storyline.
So, next game. We talked about it. We debated it. It was a hard sell. We had a lot of different ones we talked about. We settled on Payday 2. I know what you're thinking. No one knows what the fuck that is. Maybe you do know what it is. Have you played it? Probably not. It seems like a cool game. I played it for like an hour. It was fun. I don't think Jason or Nate has ever played it. Have you guys?
No, I've not. I've heard about it, but...
Yet.
Good.
Niet.
Niet and yet. Because we're going to play it. It's on Steam for $9.99, and it's on sale right now through the 28th, which is Monday at 1 p.m. So, hey, kudos to you guys who listened to us early because you got the sale. When it's off sale, sorry, but that's what we're playing. It's multiplayer. Do you guys know if it has a single-player campaign, or does it have to be multiplayer?
I do not.
I presume it... I don't know. Yeah,
neither do I. Yeah. Might have a single-player, might only be multiplayer, but that's what we're doing, and there's 3 of us, so, we're going to do it, and fuck you.
Co-op.
Yeah. If you guys want to hear us talk about something else, you want to hear us play a different game, if you want to play a different game, you can always let us know what you're looking for. We have a email account. You can hit us at commandcenterpodcast@gmail.com. You can hit us on our Facebook. Just search Command Center. Same thing with Twitter. You can get us on Instagram. And don't forget, if you're listening to us on our website, you can always get us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Tell your friends. We're lonely. We want to hear from you. Hit us up. We want to know what games you want to hear us play because we're here for you. So, what are our last thoughts, boys?
If we don't get 1,000 users, we're so lonely Daniel's gonna rape me. Please listen.
Can we do that over?
That's a great ending.
I actually like that.